The night was shattered by distant explosions, their thunderous roar vibrating through the thick, acrid air. In the midst of chaos, a young woman named Amina pressed herself against a crumbling wall, her breath ragged and her heart pounding as flames flickered menacingly nearby. Clutching a fragile bundle tightly against her chest, her wide eyes scanned the smoke-filled horizon beyond the ruins, searching desperately for any sign of safety. How had she survived this hellish inferno? What lay ahead in the darkness beyond the bullets and fire? This was no ordinary escape. This was a flight through a war zone where every step could be her last, and the truth behind Amina's journey was a terrifying lie long concealed by the official narrative. The year was 2016, deep within a fractured land torn apart by relentless conflict. The village where Amina once lived was now a ghostly shell, its vibrant streets swallowed by silence and the stench of burned homes. The cold mud clung to her worn boots, mingling with the soot that blackened her skin. The suffocating stillness was broken only by distant gunfire and the haunting cries of those left behind. This was not just a backdrop, but a living horror that breathed down her neck as she prepared to flee. Her journey began when her neighborhood was suddenly engulfed in an unprovoked attack. One moment, children played beneath the gray skies. The next, the ground shook with explosions and screams shattered the fragile peace. Amina had barely grasped the urgency before the world she knew was ripped apart. Her family scattered, her friends disappeared, and she was forced into a desperate choice: stay and face certain death or run into the teeth of uncertainty. Amina's first obstacle was the overwhelming chaos of displacement. Roads were clogged with refugees, their faces etched with fear and loss. Armed patrols blocked the way, their eyes cold and unwelcoming. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, the nights grew colder, and the relentless fear of capture haunted every step. She was forced to hide by day in the shadows of bombed-out buildings, moving only when the darkness cloaked her escape. Each breath was a gamble, each movement a fight against exhaustion and despair. The terror was not just external, it clawed at her from within. Memories of friends torn apart, the relentless noise of war, the constant threat of betrayal by those she thought trustworthy. When a trusted guide vanished without a trace, Amina was left to navigate unfamiliar terrain alone, unsure if she was walking towards salvation or a deadly trap. Moments of hope flickered briefly, a glimpse of a border crossing, the sound of distant voices speaking of refuge, but were too often snuffed out by brutal checkpoints or unforgiving terrain. The climax of her ordeal came during a desperate dash under a moonless sky. Enemy forces had been closing in, and Amina found herself trapped between a firing squad and a swollen river that roared with deadly currents. Her small hands trembled around the bundle of stolen hope, an infant born amidst this nightmare. She waded into the icy water, fighting the current, her heart hammering against the weight of motherhood and survival. Every second was a battle against drowning, against darkness, against the crushing will to give up. But then came the terrifying lie. Official accounts would later paint Amina as a lucky beneficiary of an orchestrated rescue. Documents claimed she was smuggled out by Allied forces, shielded by a covert operation that guaranteed her safety. The truth was far bleaker. She had escaped alone, betrayed by those she trusted, forced to barter her own dignity for passage. The networks she relied upon were tangled with corrupt officials who sold refuge to the highest bidder. Her survival was a brutal testament not to military precision, but to raw, unyielding human endurance and the desperate will to live amid a world that had forsaken her. Today, Amina remains a symbol of courage overshadowed by the myths constructed by governments and the media. Her story exposes the harsh reality of war refugees. Survival is rarely heroic in the way history tells it. It's messy, painful, and often leaves scars deeper than any battlefield wound. Behind every headline about liberation or rescue lies a darker narrative of sacrifice, loss, and broken trust. What they never show you is the struggle in the despair, the emotional fractures beneath the surface, and the haunting question of what sacrifices were truly made, and who ultimately paid the price. Amina's journey did not end in safety but began a new chapter of resilience. In her, we see the face of millions displaced by conflicts often forgotten or whitewashed. Her story challenges us to look beyond comforting lies and confront the brutal truth of war's human cost. What then was Amina's greatest challenge? Was it the bullets and bombs, the river's fury, or the betrayal that tainted every step of her escape? The answer may